Most people think cheating has a clear shape, a message discovered, a lie exposed, a moment where betrayal becomes undeniable. But some of the most damaging forms of cheating never look like cheating at all. Nothing dramatic happens. The relationship technically continues, and yet something inside the dynamic quietly changes. Attention shifts, loyalty moves, emotional energy starts flowing somewhere else. Machiavelli understood a brutal truth about human nature. Betrayal rarely begins with a visible act. It begins with subtle shifts in priority and perception. In this video, you'll uncover 7 forms of cheating that rarely get confessed, but slowly erode trust from the inside. Once you recognize these patterns, you'll start seeing relationships very differently. When someone else quietly becomes their first priority, there is a form of betrayal that rarely leaves evidence. No suspicious messages, no dramatic discovery, no moment where someone openly crosses a line. From the outside, the relationship still looks intact, but something fundamental has already shifted. What used to belong to you, attention, emotional energy, instinctive trust, has slowly started flowing somewhere else. Not in a way that is loud or obvious, but in a way that changes the structure of the relationship itself. This is what emotional displacement looks like. At the beginning of a relationship, emotional priority is clear. When something good happens, you are the first person they want to tell. When something difficult happens, you are the first place they turn for comfort. You are the emotional center, but displacement begins the moment that center quietly moves. Another person becomes the one they message first. Another person becomes the one they seek validation from. Another person becomes the one who understands their moods, their frustrations, their excitement. And you are still present, but no longer central. Machiavelli often described loyalty not as a promise, but as a pattern of behavior. Words can claim commitment, but priorities reveal where allegiance truly exists. Emotional attention is one of the clearest signals of that allegiance. When a person consistently invests their emotional curiosity in someone else, their thoughts, their humor, their vulnerability, the bond inside the relationship begins to thin. Not through conflict, through quiet redistribution. What makes emotional displacement so difficult to identify is that it rarely looks dramatic. Conversations can still appear innocent. Interactions may seem harmless when viewed individually. But relationships are not measured in isolated moments. They are measured in patterns. And when the pattern shows someone else becoming the emotional home base, the structure of the relationship changes, whether anyone admits it or not. Because intimacy is not defined by titles. It is defined by access. Who gets the honest conversations? Who receives the excitement? Who becomes the place someone turns when they need to feel understood? That person holds the emotional position. And once that position moves outside the relationship, something important has already been lost. No argument may have happened. No confession may exist. But loyalty, in its most practical form, has quietly shifted. The secrecy pattern. Not every betrayal begins with an action. Sometimes it begins with information that quietly disappears. Nothing dramatic changes at first. Conversations still happen. The relationship still exists. On the surface, everything appears normal, but small pieces of reality begin to go missing. Details become vague. Stories arrive incomplete. Certain interactions only appear if the exact right question is asked. Individually, each moment seems insignificant. Together, they form a pattern. This is the difference between privacy and secrecy. Privacy protects personal space. It allows a person to maintain individuality inside a relationship. Everyone needs that boundary. But secrecy serves a different purpose. Secrecy manages perception. Instead of sharing information naturally, someone begins filtering it. Certain interactions are minimized. Certain names stop appearing in conversation. Certain explanations feel carefully constructed rather than casually honest. Nothing technically proves wrongdoing, yet something about the flow of information feels controlled. Machiavelli often wrote that power hides itself long before it reveals itself. The most important moves are rarely the ones performed in the open. They are the ones concealed behind selective visibility. Relationships follow the same psychological rule. When someone begins managing what you can see, instead of simply sharing their reality, the dynamic changes. Transparency turns into negotiation. You no longer experience events directly. You receive a version of them, and versions can always be adjusted. This does not always mean something physical has happened, but secrecy creates the exact environment where emotional betrayal can grow undetected. When information is strategically limited, the person controlling the narrative also controls how the relationship perceives reality. That control becomes the real shift. Because trust does not only depend on behavior, it depends on visibility. The feeling that nothing significant is being deliberately hidden. Once secrecy enters the system, that certainty disappears. You begin noticing the pauses before answers, the missing context inside explanations, the way certain subjects change direction before they are fully discussed. None of these moments are dramatic enough to accuse, but patterns rarely lie. And when someone consistently protects information instead of protecting clarity, the relationship begins operating under a new rule. Not everything important will be visible anymore. If this insight made you see the pattern more clearly, comment clarity below, hit like and subscribe for more Machiavellian psychology like this. The loyalty shift. There is a moment in many relationships when loyalty quietly changes direction. Nothing dramatic announces it. There is no clear betrayal, no confession, but inside the relationship, something subtle has already moved. Loyalty is no longer anchored in the same place. At the beginning of a relationship, emotional energy flows naturally toward the partner. Attention, curiosity, and concern are directed inward. The relationship becomes the place where personal experiences are processed and shared. That is how emotional bonds strengthen. But loyalty begins shifting when that energy starts flowing somewhere else. Not through physical intimacy, through emotional investment. Another person becomes the one receiving the interesting stories first. Another person becomes the one who hears the frustrations, the doubts, the excitement about new ideas. And over time, that emotional exchange creates something powerful: familiarity. Machiavelli observed that loyalty rarely changes through sudden rebellion. It changes through gradual redirection of interests and alliances. A person does not wake up one day and decide their allegiance has moved. It happens through repeated moments of attention. Each conversation builds understanding. Each shared thought builds psychological closeness. Each emotional exchange slowly strengthens a separate connection. Meanwhile, the original relationship begins to experience something different. Less curiosity, less emotional depth, less instinctive sharing. Not because the relationship officially ended, but because the emotional investment that once fueled it is now divided. This shift often goes unnoticed at first. The partner may still behave politely. Responsibilities may still be fulfilled. The structure of the relationship may remain intact. But relationships are not sustained by structure alone. They are sustained by emotional priority. When emotional energy consistently builds intimacy with someone outside the relationship, the original bond begins to weaken even if no one openly acknowledges it. Because loyalty is not defined by what someone claims. It is defined by where their attention repeatedly returns. And when someone else becomes the place where emotional investment lives, the center of the relationship has already started moving. Attention extraction. Attention is one of the most valuable currencies inside a relationship. It signals interest. It signals importance. It tells the other person that their presence still matters in your emotional world. When attention flows naturally between two people, the connection stays alive because both partners feel seen and chosen. But relationships begin weakening the moment attention starts being extracted and redirected elsewhere. Someone outside the relationship begins receiving the curiosity that once belonged to the partnership. Their opinions start carrying unusual weight. Their reactions begin influencing mood and confidence in ways that slowly become noticeable. This shift often hides behind something that appears harmless. Validation. At first, it looks like ordinary conversation. A compliment here, a shared joke there, a moment of appreciation that feels small enough to ignore. But validation has a powerful psychological effect. It creates emotional reward. Machiavelli understood that influence often grows through subtle reinforcement rather than direct control. When someone consistently provides admiration, encouragement, or attention, they begin shaping how another person sees themselves. People naturally gravitate toward environments where they feel valued. That is how attention extraction begins. The partner inside the relationship may still care, but their role slowly changes. Instead of being the primary source of affirmation, they become one voice among several. Meanwhile, the outside connection gains importance because it feeds something powerful: recognition. When validation consistently arrives from the same external source, the emotional weight of that source grows. The person offering it becomes associated with confidence, excitement, and emotional uplift, and the relationship begins to feel different. Not necessarily hostile, just less central. This is why attention matters more than many people realize. Relationships weaken not only through conflict, but through the quiet relocation of emotional reward. When admiration, curiosity, and excitement repeatedly flow toward someone else, the original bond begins losing its psychological advantage, because connection is strengthened where attention lives. And once attention is regularly invested outside the relationship, the balance of emotional importance has already started to change. The comparison game. There is a subtle shift that can happen in relationships that rarely gets spoken about directly. No accusation appears, no confrontation takes place, and yet the dynamic between two people quietly begins to change. This shift begins when comparison enters the relationship. At first, it is invisible. Someone outside the relationship becomes a reference point. Not openly, but internally. Their personality, their humor, their perspective, or the way they respond emotionally starts forming a quiet benchmark. Nothing needs to be said aloud for this process to start influencing perception. Machiavelli often described how perception shapes loyalty more than facts themselves. Once the mind begins evaluating alternatives, the current alliance is no longer judged on its own terms. It is judged against something else. That is where the comparison game begins. The partner inside the relationship may not even realize it is happening, but small differences start becoming more noticeable. Conversations that once felt normal now feel slightly less engaging. Reactions that once felt comforting now seem predictable. Not because the relationship changed overnight, because another person introduced a psychological contrast. And contrast is powerful. When the mind begins placing two people side by side, it starts noticing strengths in one that appear absent in the other. Humor may seem sharper elsewhere. Attention may feel more enthusiastic elsewhere. Curiosity may feel more alive elsewhere. These perceptions slowly reshape emotional attraction. The danger of comparison is that it rarely stays neutral. Over time, the outside person begins occupying a symbolic role in the mind. They become the invisible standard. Meanwhile, the relationship itself begins to carry a different emotional weight. Instead of being the natural center of connection, it becomes something the mind evaluates, measures, and questions. This does not mean the relationship immediately collapses, but it means its position has changed. Because once a comparison standard exists, the relationship is no longer experienced as the primary emotional reference point. It becomes one option among several emotional possibilities. And the moment a relationship becomes something that is mentally compared rather than instinctively valued, the structure holding it together has already started to weaken. Defensive manipulation. Not every betrayal reveals itself through actions. Sometimes it reveals itself through reactions. A relationship can survive misunderstandings, mistakes, and even moments of distance. What determines whether trust survives those moments is something much simpler: accountability. When something feels wrong inside a relationship, the natural instinct is to bring it forward, not as an accusation, but as an attempt to restore clarity. A question is asked: A concern is expressed. The goal is understanding. But sometimes the response does not move toward repair. It moves toward reversal. Instead of addressing the concern, the conversation quietly changes direction. The focus shifts away from the original issue and toward the person who raised it. The problem becomes your reaction. Your concern is labeled overthinking. Your discomfort becomes insecurity. Your attempt to understand the situation is reframed as suspicion or control. This is defensive manipulation. Machiavelli often wrote that controlling perception is one of the most effective ways to control outcomes. When someone cannot easily justify their behavior, they may attempt something more subtle. They reshape the narrative. If the conversation can be redirected toward your supposed flaws, your sensitivity, your jealousy, your inability to trust, the original question loses its power. Attention moves away from their actions and toward your character. The dynamic changes instantly. You stop asking questions. You begin explaining yourself instead. This psychological reversal is extremely effective because it creates confusion. Instead of evaluating the behavior that triggered the concern, the person raising the issue starts questioning whether their feelings were valid in the first place. And once that doubt appears, the original problem disappears from view. Repair requires acknowledgement. Trust grows when discomfort is addressed with openness rather than deflection. But when every attempt at clarity is met with redirection, something deeper begins to erode. The relationship no longer becomes a place where truth can be examined safely. It becomes a place where perception must be carefully managed. And once accountability is consistently replaced with psychological reversal, the balance of honesty inside the relationship has already begun to collapse. The quiet abandonment. Not every relationship ends with a visible collapse. Sometimes the structure remains exactly where it was. The same conversations happen. The same routines continue. From the outside, everything still appears intact. But inside the relationship, something essential has already disappeared. Loyalty. Quiet abandonment begins when someone stops emotionally standing inside the relationship while still physically remaining in it. Nothing dramatic announces this shift. There is no confrontation, no clear decision, no formal ending. The bond simply begins operating on momentum rather than commitment. Machiavelli often wrote that alliances rarely break at the moment people expect. They weaken long before the official separation occurs. The visible break is only the final stage of a loyalty that has already moved elsewhere. Relationships follow the same pattern. The person is still present, but the investment that once sustained the connection is gone. Conversations become procedural rather than curious. Emotional support becomes limited rather than instinctive. Attention appears when required, not when naturally offered. The relationship continues to exist, but the loyalty that once animated it has quietly left. What makes quiet abandonment so difficult to recognize is that there is no dramatic signal telling you it happened. Responsibilities may still be fulfilled. Kindness may still appear occasionally. The surface behavior of the relationship may look unchanged, but the underlying orientation has shifted. The person is no longer protecting the relationship as something valuable. Instead, they are simply maintaining it as something familiar. That difference is significant, because loyalty is not measured by presence alone. It is measured by where someone directs their emotional protection, their curiosity, and their long-term commitment. When those elements disappear, the relationship begins existing in a fragile state. It continues out of habit rather than dedication, and habits can maintain appearances for a long time. But once loyalty has moved somewhere else, emotionally, psychologically, or strategically, the relationship has already crossed a line that most people do not immediately recognize. It has stopped being actively chosen, and the moment a relationship stops being chosen, its future is no longer secure. What makes these 7 forms of cheating dangerous is that none of them look dramatic while they are happening. There is no obvious moment where the relationship suddenly collapses. No single action that clearly announces betrayal. Instead, the shift happens quietly, through attention moving somewhere else, loyalty being redirected, conversations becoming guarded, and emotional energy slowly leaving the bond. And by the time most people realize something changed, the structure of the relationship has already weakened. That is why understanding these patterns matters. Because cheating is not only defined by physical acts, it is defined by where loyalty lives, where emotional investment flows, and whether transparency and respect are still protecting the connection. When those foundations begin to disappear, the relationship starts operating under a different reality, even if no one openly says it. If this breakdown helped you see these dynamics more clearly, make sure to like the video, share it with someone who should understand these patterns, and subscribe for more psychological insights on relationships, power, and human behavior. And before you leave, comment awareness below if you've ever noticed one of these patterns in real life.